All right, I'm going to hit some NBA mailbag stuff. Just so you know, I'm taping this on a Monday. I think all of this stuff is relatively evergreen. If anything crazy happens, don't hold it against me. You figured like the NBA, it's got to get quiet one of these weeks. I figured it'd be right now. We'll get to Costner in a second. You sent some emails. It's themailbag@theringer.com if you ever want to email me. But let's go through a couple of them here. This one is from Owen in Larchmont, New York. He was wondering who I thought would be the Pascal Siakam of the 2020 season. Not necessarily an impact finals player, but someone making a leap. Someone coming out of relative nowhere that we knew was pretty good, but then all of a sudden by the end of the year, we're asking, is that an All-NBA guy? Could that guy be the second best guy on a finals team? All right, so I thought about this question. My answer is this. Here are the nominees. It has to be somebody that's going to be on a playoff team. Either a contender or somebody who's one move away from being a contender, or a team that's just relevant. Those would be my three categories for that. So we'll go through all these. Brandon Ingram. I think he has the talent. He's young. The blood clot thing set him back, but supposedly he has a chance to be healthy. That team needs a scorer. I kind of like the team. I like the Lonzo Drew Holiday combo. The Zion thing will be fun. But they need a scorer. They need somebody to give the ball to in the last 4 minutes of the game. I could see him making a leap. I don't think that's a contender or anything, but they might be a stealth 43-win playoff team. Who knows? But if that happens, it'll happen because of him. Next one I would pick is Jaylen Brown. And before you say that I'm a homer, I should mention, one of the best guys on a team that almost made the finals a year plus ago. I thought he was really good from January on last year. He had just an awful first 2 months and then rallied and became a reliable, semi-elite two-way guy. And I'm interested to see what he does with more shots on a team that doesn't want to kill each other every week. He's young too. And I've talked about this before, but there's a statistical trajectory with him where Paul George isn't unrealistic. Him being able to blossom like that. Every time I say that, people get mad at me, but just go look at Paul George's stats the first couple of years and get back to me. I'm really interested to see what happens with him and Tatum now that they know this is their team. Mark him down. Karis LeVert on Brooklyn. I guess the recipe would be if Kyrie was just awesome this year, which is very possible. He was awesome in year one in Boston, and Brooklyn ends up being a little better than we thought they'd be in a weak conference, and they're stringing along until KD can potentially come back in the next spring, who knows? But LeVert's somebody that was looking like a 20-point-a-game guy and is still relatively young. And the big question with him is whether he can just stay on the court. But I think he has the talent too. The next one I don't believe in, but I'm just going to mention him, Kyle Kuzma, just because he's going to be in a really nice situation with the Lakers where he's going to have a lot of open shots. He's going to have a lot of support, and they actually probably need him a little bit. I'm just not convinced he's anything more than like a 17-7. I don't think he's a very good defensive player either. But I had to mention him or else the Laker fans are like, you mentioned Jaylen Brown, you mentioned Kyle Kuzma. Well, I mentioned him. The next one is my dark horse, Jeremy Grant. Really liked him on OKC. I think it's very strange to be on OKC. It's a weird team the last few years with Westbrook, and then Paul George comes in, and you're basically just an ornament offensively, and then defensively you have to try your ass off and all that stuff. But I really want to see him on this Denver team. That ball movement, offensive sophistication being at a whole other level than OKC. I think he's a really good athlete. I just have always liked his game, and they've needed like an elite wing on that team. I don't know if he has the talent, but I have my eye on him. Zach Collins on Portland. You know he's going to play because of Nurkic is out until at least the All-Star break. I don't believe in Hassan Whiteside at all. I like the flashes of Zach Collins in the playoffs, and he's young. I think he turns 22 during the season. And looks a little like producer Craig. Looks a little bit like you.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little taller.
Josh Richardson, I think, is the favorite. And the guy that I left for last year. We know Philly's going to be good. We know they are going to be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the East. We know they need him desperately to help defend basically the best perimeter guy on the other team. And then on top of that, make wide open threes. And I think he's good. And I think he's somebody that the average NBA fan just hasn't watched a lot of the last couple of years. And if anything, was in a situation in Miami where they were asking a little too much for him. I think if he's like your fourth banana, fifth banana, he could really thrive. And I'm interested to see what happens with him. I thought he had some good moments last year. So those would be my nominees. If there's anybody out there that I missed, tell me. Next question from Andrew in California. This is a good one. The Knicks are one of the few publicly traded sports teams as part of the MSG stock on the New York Stock Exchange. Can you imagine a Ringer-led crowd-funded effort to purchase a controlling share of MSG, then fire James Dolan and take control of the Knicks? The current value of MSG is $6.8 billion. $3.45 billion would give you a 50% stake and the ability to name yourself CEO. Let's make this happen. Oh, I didn't realize I got to be the CEO in this whole thing. This is magnificent. All right, so I thought this was obviously ludicrous. How are you going to raise $4 billion in a crowdfunding effort? Well, last year, a blockchain startup, I think I know what blockchain is. Do you know what blockchain is, Greg?
A little bit.
A blockchain startup raised $4 billion without a live product. It was a Cayman Island startup. It eclipsed the world's biggest initial public offerings on stock exchanges that year. It was Block.one. It was funding a blockchain platform called EOS.iOS through a process known as an initial coin offering, or ICO. I'm just reading this I copy-pasted it. A multi-billion-dollar fundraising effort, more than doubling the next biggest offering of that type. Well, I mean, that sounded pretty sketchy.
We could create Ringer coin.
Ringer coin. Maybe could we pay for the Knicks in blockchain or Ringer coin or whatever? All right. I'm going to look into this, but all I know is if a Cayman Island startup can raise $4 billion, we could raise $3.45 billion and take the Knicks away from James Dolan. You do think, though, there's probably like conservative estimate, 12 million Knicks fans. Get 1 million of those 12 million to contribute $100. I can't add. I used to be able to add. I got a 690 on my math SATs, which was really high back then. Now I can't add 3 + 4. But yeah, I'm not going to rule out this Knicks thing. Ringer-led crowd-funded effort. Yeah, let's do it. All right, next question. Mike in Philadelphia wonders, Adam Silver doesn't catch nearly enough crap for forcing Jerry Colangelo down the Sixers' throat, who in turn hired his idiot son and his huge collars to immediately knock the Six off their rebuilding course. But the Lakers and Knicks can somehow continue to be run by like my niece's easy bake cake sale. What the hell is going on here? It's from Mike in Philadelphia. My answer is, you're right. It is a little weird that they intervene with the Knicks. I guess the difference is they intervene with the front office and not the actual ownership. What the problem with the NBA is like a neighborhood where some asshole buys the house next to you. And at that point, it's his house unless he's selling heroin out of there or doing something illegal, or it's Jeffrey Epstein. The NBA really has no power at all to get somebody to sell, with one exception. We saw it with Donald Sterling this decade, and we kind of saw it with George Shinn way back when he was involved. He owned the Charlotte team before Bob Johnson and Michael Jordan. And even then, they made him move out of Charlotte, or maybe he wanted to move, or both, and he moved to New Orleans. And even that, they couldn't get rid of that guy. It's really hard. It has to be like a Jerry Richardson, Donald Sterling type of situation. And even then, the guy doesn't really necessarily have to sell. He could drag it on in court for 20 years. So, Mike from Philadelphia, I don't really have an answer for you, except for, you're right. Why did Jerry Colangelo, why was that the one who got forced down the Sixers throat? I will say there has been some revisionist history with the Sam Hinkie era in Philly, where his idea was great, but then some of the execution of it was pretty. I mean, he did take Jahlil Okafor in the top 5, and he did take Nerlens Noel 6th, and he did. What was the other one? Oh, Michael Carter Williams. Like, his drafting was pretty iffy. His trades were good, and really what he did that was probably the most indefensible was he enraged the other teams. They just didn't like dealing with him, and they thought he was arrogant and wouldn't call them back and all kinds of stuff. There's a way to deal with fans and other teams where you could have a modicum of, civility and interplay, and he just didn't care. So I think from that standpoint, the league probably needed to intervene, but the stuff about them just throwing seasons away to get high lottery picks kind of vindicated by Embiid and Simmons. There was some way to do a modified version of that I think would have been really defensible. And the other version of that is what the Lakers did for basically this whole decade, where they tanked, but it wasn't even intentional. They were just incompetent. So anyway, if you look at Philly's decade versus the Lakers' decade, the Lakers were actually probably worse. Next question. Matthew Illman wants to know, with Paul George fleeing OKC 1 year after re-signing, do you think this adds more weight to your previous argument the Lakers were banned by the league from signing him last year as a penalty for alleged tampering? This was Conspiracy Bill did weigh in with this a year ago. It would seem now that maybe Paul George always intended on leaving for LA, but perhaps couldn't do it last year, and now he can do it. It's from Matthew Ullman. All right, here's my answer. Let's just look at the evidence. We heard for 2 years that much like Kawhi, Paul George wanted to come to LA when he was a free agent because he's from Southern California. He went to Fresno State. Indiana traded him partly because they were convinced he was ditching them for, they thought, the Lakers. And then out in LA, there was just a lot of talk of Paul George is coming here in a year, which on the one hand can be rumors, but on the other hand, when it's LA and Jeannie Buss is rubbing in the circles with a whole bunch of different people and people are saying, I saw Jeannie, she said Paul George is coming. You never know what to believe, but there definitely was a real buzz and a real sense that he was coming in a year, and everybody thought he was coming with LeBron. Well, LeBron came by himself. So Paul George loses a year ago in an unhappy series against Utah. They lose in round 1. And you would think like, well, that opened the door. Now he'll just go to the Lakers. Well, what if he goes to the Lakers with Paul George, with LeBron? Well, he re-signs in late June with OKC without ever meeting anyone, without dragging out the process or getting any attention whatsoever for it, creating any dramatic tension, anything, even though he was filming a documentary series at the time, which is hilarious in retrospect. It's on YouTube. But that never sat right with me. If you're looking for the spotlight and you have a documentary crew around you, why are you deciding in late June where you're signing? Why not milk it for another week and then do it? All right, so you got that. The timing was weird. You have the Lakers were fined for tampering, which you knew. You have in April, this April that just happened, Magic Johnson mysteriously resigns for reasons that remain unclear. Did Rob Pelinka backstab him? Was he upset with something? Like, what happened there? Did we ever know why Magic? Craig, you have a satisfactory explanation for Magic resigning?
No.
I don't feel good about it. I don't know what happened with that guy. It was almost like he got pushed out. Conspiracy Bill is his eye on it. Then, July, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Paul George wants to trade to the Clippers, not the Lakers. Now, the Lakers didn't have anything to trade because they give up, 7 years of stuff for Anthony Davis. But I don't know. Conspiracy Bill gives this like a 6 out of 10 on the Conspiracy Bill scale. I think there's some smoke here. I'm not sure I see a ton of fire. I just do not understand why he signed with OKC last June without playing it out at all or even meeting the Lakers when all we had heard for 2 years was he loves the Lakers, he loves LA, he wants to play in LA, and then doesn't even have a meeting with the Lakers when LeBron's coming, when everybody knows LeBron is coming. That's weird. All right, next question. This one hurts. This is from Trevor. I almost don't know if I want to read this one. Trevor writes, just reading the tea leaves here. Notice Jason Tatum has not posted anything about the Celtics this offseason on his Instagram or Twitter accounts. He has not welcomed the new acquisitions, nor given the Celtics organizations and fans a bicep flex emoji to signal approval on anything. What's worse, he congratulated Rozier for signing with Charlotte. He retweeted a Marcus Morris tweet when Marcus Morris couldn't find a team, but was telling everybody it was all right, he's going to find one. And also, he happened to go to the same school as Kyrie. He went to Duke, and they were actually friends last year. And that's the guy that we're all happily driving to the airport. Trevor asked, should we be worried? I was like, oh, come on. There's no way Jason Tatum hasn't tweeted anything. Well, I go through his Twitter feed. He wasn't lying. There's no Celtics tweets On July 6th, Marcus Morris tweeted, "Either way, a go, we gone, make it happen. Either way, we find a make it happen." That's always the mindset. He's using some weird words here. Finna?
Yep.
Either way, we finna make it happen.
Yeah,
that's always the mindset. What's finna?
Means fixing to, like going to.
Finna?
Yeah, like I'm finna eat tonight.
Is this my oldest moment of all time?
No, finna's, that's okay that you don't know finna.
Okay. How does Kyle not teach me about finna? This is what happens when Kyle's away. So anyway, Jason Tatum retweets this and adds Trillist! Exclamation point. Always room for a bully. So you have that. And then Rozier signs with Charlotte on June 30th. Bleacher Report says Terry Rozier has agreed to a 3-year, $58 million deal with the Hornets via sign and trade per Shams Charania. Jason Tatum retweets, "My dog!" 3 exclamation points. Couldn't be happier. Was there a Kemba Walker tweet or a Welcome to Boston Enes Kanter tweet? No. All right, let's go back to June 12th. Bradley Beal tweets, "Stanley Cup champs!" 4 exclamation points. Hashtag at St. Louis Blues, hashtag St. Louis forever. And Jason Tatum then retweets that and tweets, "St. Louis forever," 3 exclamation points. Now, I'm not against that because he's from there and Bradley Beal's his guy. I keep going through and I don't know, Craig, there's just nothing. There's no indication that he's even on the Celtics since the season ended. So here's my fear. From what we've heard, his name was kind of floated around a tiny bit with the Anthony Davis stuff. And how serious that was, who knows? But if they were going to try to get Anthony Davis, he had to be in the deal. So maybe he heard something. Maybe he didn't like how last season went. I'm concerned. I'm concerned in general. I have not enjoyed the last 12 Jason Tatum months. Ever since he came on this podcast. I haven't enjoyed the last year. I also checked his Instagram and there's just no indication that he's excited about anything with the Celtics. So the moral of the story is this: Jason Tatum, just retweet an Enes Kanter, Kemba Walker picture and be like, "Can't wait to play with these guys." Just do something. Don't make me have to sweat this out. You're only 2 years into a 5-year deal. All right, a couple DC fans have emailed me this question. Some variation of CP3 to DC for John Wall and a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks. If you're a Wizards fan, you're basically thinking, this is our best chance to keep Bradley Beal. We upgrade John Wall. I'm not going to list all the people. I don't want to embarrass them who emailed me this trade. You're not trading John Wall's contract. And this season, you shouldn't, because as Joe House keeps pointing out on this podcast, it's insured, I think, 80% if you can't play this year. So you're going nowhere anyway. Play it out. Have the insurance pay for his deal. It helps with tanking anyway. Go for one more top 5 pick and then reevaluate. There was news that broke today on Monday that they offered Bradley Beal a 3 years, $111 million extension. If he turns it down, okay, you can still take it to February or whatever. And you can get a king's ransom. And by the way, we just talked about Jason Tatum and Bradley Beal. He's close, the St. Louis thing. That could be a possible match because the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, one of my breakout prospects of the year, but he's also going to be a free agent pretty soon. I think he's restricted next summer. And after watching Jamal Murray get $170 million and some of these other guys, from his Ben Simmons got $170 million and Jaylen Brown didn't get anything. So you have to wonder, are they on the clock with him a little bit? Would he want to go play for the Hawks? He's from Atlanta. How long is he going to be a Celtic, especially if they haven't committed to him? So maybe that's part of how this plays out, where they overpay a little for Bradley Beal and then put him and Tatum together. I don't know. I'm rambling. My point is this. DC is not trading John Wall. Nobody wants John Wall. There aren't enough picks available to take John Wall. And if you're the Wizards, just wait till next summer and figure it out. And best case scenario, he's in awesome shape and actually brings something to the table. John Wall's contract, 4 years, $171 million. Oof. I think the only realistic CP3 trade, as we've mentioned 70 times on this podcast already, was Jeff Teague's expiring and Gorgie Dang, 2 years, $33.5 million. What are the odds I said Gorgie correctly? Gorgie?
Gorgie.
Gorgie?
I think it's Gorgie.
God. My pronunciation is getting worse every year. I used to make fun of Eddie Endelman for this way back. Now I'm turning it to him. So I think that's the only one. And I got to say, I think, done a little digging on this. Who represents Karl Towns? CAA. Who represents Chris Paul? CAA. Who has a really good interest in Minnesota being good next year and everybody being happy? CAA. Who gets shit done? CAA. I'm in on CAA. CAA makes it happen. I think Chris Paul's on Minnesota for the start of the season. I'm making that prediction. All right, let's take a break. Hey, Rockstar Games, a one-stop destination for quality entertainment and high-end living. Where's that? Grand Theft Auto Online. The Diamond Casino and Resort offers a range of experience for all kinds of players. Try your hand at casino games like 3-card poker, blackjack, and roulette. Play slot machines with a variety of prizes. The Diamond Casino and Resort, it is an oasis of luxury with a master penthouse that sits beside the roof terrace with infinity pool and stunning views. Purchase a penthouse to become a VIP member. Gain access to a series of action-packed cooperative missions as you help property owner and triad party boy Tao Chang and the Diamond staff protect their investment from a hostile takeover by a ruthless Texan oil and gas family. VIP membership also includes access to VIP lounges, high-limit tables, a range of special services via the penthouse phone, including aircraft limo, a whole bunch of other stuff. Experience the never-ending universe of multiplayer gameplay possibilities in Grand Theft Auto Online. In the latest free update, the Diamond Casino and Resort access is free with every copy. Available now at rockstargames.com. I think the most fun thing I did this summer was letting my son finally play Grand Theft Auto. I probably shouldn't have, but he's 11. He's ready for it. And he's really enjoying it. It's been fun to play with him. So anyway, check that out. All right, back to the mailbag. All right, couple more questions. Then we'll get to Kevin Costner, the one, the only. Eric Lapointe wants to know, you've recently nicknamed the 2010s the player empowerment decade. I'm curious what each NBA decade's name would be. It's a great question. So here's the thing about NBA decades. I don't really know if you can actually just name the decades, because what's weird about the NBA is the decade actually starts in the middle of each decade. They formed the league in 1946, and you almost have to look at it as 10-year intervals or so from 46 on until we get to the 2010s. If you're going to name the actual decade from start to finish of the decade, I think it just gets tougher. You can do it with some, like the 80s are like the Bird Magic and MJ decade. The 90s are the too much, too fast, too soon decade. But like, I don't know what the 2000s were. So I think it's easier to do it the way I answered it here. I think it's eras, not decades. 46 to 56. This is the white guys decade. There's just white guys. The league, you look at these photos of like the Minnesota team, the Minneapolis team George Mikan played on, and it's just like 12 white guys. They look like they're all shop teachers. Then Bill Russell comes in, 56 to 69. That's the Russell era. He's the greatest team sport athlete of all time. He wins 11 titles in 13 years. He ushers in a completely different basketball where all of a sudden now they're allowing black players to play. Congratulations, NBA. Thanks for letting people of all colors in. Bill Russell comes in, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Lenny Wilkins, Will Chamberlain, and the league just Sam Jones. I mean, and even like about halfway through Russell's career, there was still this unwritten rule that the NBA, you only allowed like 2 black guys per team because they were so afraid of how the way fans would react to it. It's really some dark stuff. I cover a lot of this in my book, but Russell ushers in this new era, and the league starts to change color while he's there. And by the end of it, the league starts to look like what it looks like now. So then you go 1970 to 1976. That's kind of the ABA Kareem era, where Kareem is the best player in the NBA by far. The ABA is now kind of coming. They're grabbing people who aren't done with college yet. They're grabbing people right out of high school. They're ushered. They have the 3-point line. They're doing dunks. And it's just like a much more fun version of basketball. Only it's run horrendously. It's a disaster. The courts are bad. The owners are bad. There's no fans for anything. There's barely any televised games. But the premise of it is more fun. And eventually in 1976, they merged. But I think those 7 years is the ABA and Kareem. That's how you remember that. 77 to 83, they merge, or 76 to 83, I guess. And this is the tape delay, cocaine, era. This is when the league really almost craters. You have just a bunch of disappointing superstars. You have drugs just ravaging the league. And you have networks that don't really believe in the product, leading to them tape delaying playoff games and then the finals. In 1981, when the Celtics won Game 6 in Houston, even in Boston, they didn't show that game till 11:30. I went to bed, and then my dad woke me up at 11:30, and we watched the game on tape delay and didn't listen to the radio to find out what happened. I mean, this has happened in my lifetime. It's nuts. That leads, though, to 84 to 93, which I think is the glory days. These are just great times. Bird and Magic, the 84 finals. First time they show the finals every game at night or in the afternoon or whatever, but everything's live again. You have Kareem, you have Bird, you have Magic. You have the right team finally wins the 84 finals, the Boston Celtics, 7-game series, just a classic. And that leads to a really, really great 10-year run where the slam dunk contest comes in. David Stern's really wielding his influence. You have an influx of awesome players to watch. Dominique, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan obviously comes in, Scottie Pippen, David Robinson, Malone and Stockton. Like, you're just Hall of Famers every year just coming into the league. And it's a great 10 years. The product was really good. What's weird is if you watch the games from that era, they actually resemble the current NBA more than the games from the next era, 94 to 2003, which I call the too much, too fast, too soon era. That's when the wheels came off, where you had rookies coming into the league. They're making way too much money right away. It's player empowerment, but in the worst possible way, where you have young guys who haven't done anything yet who think that they can control everything. Nobody has to earn anything. There's no mechanism in place to protect people who have gone from being broke kids in high school to playing 1 year, 2 years in college to all of a sudden making $7-8 million a year. And everything goes wrong, leading to the 99 lockout, where they try to basically fix some of the ills that had seeped in. But as we did that, a lot of careers that should have been great just ended up not being that great. Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway, Kenny Anderson, Glenn Robinson, Vin Baker, Sean Kemp. You can keep going and going. All these dudes who just should have been all-timers and didn't get there. And at the same time, the league, the quality of play was, it was just way too physical, way too slow. You have the playoff games that are like 72 to 70, and it just was bad. And everything kind of crested in the 04 Olympics when we got our asses kicked, and it's all one-on-one and just no team play at all. So that leads to the next era, the look in the mirror era, 03 to 11, where the league looks in the mirror and says, we got to fix this. All right, how do we fix this? Let's add a rookie scale. Let's add some rules to make the game more fun. Let's get rid of hand checking. Let's quicken the pace a little bit. At the same time, there's a little more innovation. There's advanced metrics are coming in. Now people know to take more three-pointers. And by the end of 2011, basketball is starting to look like basketball, like the basketball that we love now. You have three-point shooters coming in like Steph and Clay. And by the 2011, where you have LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Bosh had already happened, you have an old school Dallas team really kind of outthinking them and just playing a better brand of basketball and a smarter brand of basketball and a tougher brand of basketball and toppling them. The league's in good shape. Unfortunately, we have a lockout that sets us back. We recover from the lockout, and that leads to the player empowerment era. So even though the decision was in 2010 and the look in the mirror, I still feel like the league hadn't really figured itself out. I think the 2012 on is the player empowerment era. Really, that LeBron going back to Cleveland was the better version of that. And now everything that's happened now and shorter contracts that came from the lockout, the ability to pre-agency, which was a concept coined by a reader. I wish I could remember which reader said that I said on a podcast. I gave it to Jalen Rose. I told him on this podcast he was going to steal it. He immediately went on 17 of ESPN shows and stole it. Now pre-HC is the thing. All of that stuff started here. So I think those I would say would be the eras. And I think my favorite era was the glory days. Not just because I'm old and you look back at when you were younger and things were better, but it's just 21 teams, Bird, Magic, MJ. The style of play was great. It was just really fun. I think we can get there again with the NBA. I have faith. We have a lot of talent right now. All right, next question. Andrew in San Diego from the Bay says, can we put some respect? He doesn't use T, he uses K. Respect on Steph's name. The media consensus on the Dubs is they might miss the playoffs and the dynasty's over. The last time they were underestimated, after the 2015 championship, most felt it was a result of injuries to other teams. What happened? 73 wins. Well, am I crazy to think Steph can return to MVP form and the Dubs can still contend? So I've heard this a few times, and people are acting like nobody is considering this. Well, I just want to point out their odds to win the title are 12-1, which are pretty good. Their over-under for wins this year is 49, which is higher than I thought it was going to be. And Steph has the second best MVP odds, 5-1. So I think this is on people's radar. I'm looking at their team. I actually kind of like their team. You have Curry unleashed. This is probably his last chance to have like a real monster MVP season, I would think. Maybe he could do it. Maybe he's got a 2-year window here. You got Draymond in a contract year who finally realized last season that, if I lose 25 pounds, I'm going to play basketball better. Congratulations to him. You have D'Angelo Russell, who's only 23, playing on a really smart team that knows how to use guards off ball and off screens and how to take advantage of people who just thrive on the perimeter. I think he's going to be really good for them. And if he's not, they can flip him. But I am in the camp that he's going to be good for them. They have Kevon Looney and Willie Cauley-Stein. I like both of those guys. I'm interested to see Cauley-Stein. I think it'll go one of two ways: complete disaster or way better than anyone thinks. I'm in the way better than anyone thinks camp, but I like those two guys together. I think they're going to be pretty good defensively. You know, Clay doesn't come back until April, but they have Alec Burks and Alfonso McKinney who can at least give them some swing stuff. They still seem like they're a guy short, but I feel like they're a kind of a stealth favorite to land somebody if they need somebody. I just kind of like the team. I would compare it to the 94 Bulls when they lost MJ and everyone just wrote them off. And I'm not saying, they have a chance to be as successful as the Bulls. The Bulls, I think, won 55 games. Pippen was an MVP candidate. But I thought one of the reasons they were so successful is the infrastructure of coaching, training staff, just having been there before, not being afraid, big game experience. All that stuff can really matter sometimes. And if you look at what happened with the 94 Bulls, it was really the experience and the coaching, the infrastructure, and them kind of realizing how to revolve around a different great player. I think the Warriors, I would not count them out. 49 wins seems a little high, only because if Curry got hurt, I think this team would have a lot of trouble offensively, but I'm with you. I don't think the dynasty is over by any means. And if they can hold the fort, be in that 5, 6, 7 seed range for when Clay comes back, and if he can come back, people come back from that injury now, and in 10 months they seem fine, or 90% what they were. So if that can happen, great. Josh from Richfield wants to know, 5 years from now, who's the best point guard in the NBA? Here are the nominees. My answer: De'Aaron Fox, 20 years old. Ben Simmons, Devin Booker, Trae Young, Ja Morant, SGA, or then Steph and Dame in their mid-30s still doing it. My money would be on De'Aaron Fox. I just think he has a couple levels up to go. I get Donovan Mitchell, I guess, could be in here, but I don't really feel like he's a point guard. I feel like he's I just don't think of him as a traditional point guard. If you want to throw him in there, that he's a good inclusion too. I don't really feel like that's why they got Mike Conley, because Donovan Mitchell really isn't a point guard. But Fox to me is like the old school point guard that combines a lot of different guys that I like. Like there's some Westbrook athleticism with him. There's some Chris Paul run the game, doesn't really care about his stats kind of stuff going on. I think he's incredibly unselfish. And he's just a top of the line, awesome teammate. And I just like that guy. When you think about how Phoenix could have taken him fourth and put him with Booker, and instead they took Josh Jackson. Oh my God. Or Philly could have taken him first. I mean, they wouldn't have, but man, some teams kicking themselves. JP in Des Moines wants to know, you guys have danced around this on multiple podcasts, but haven't zeroed on the perfect new nickname for Kawhi. Kawhizer Soze. So I guess I'm down with this. I don't know what the deal is with Usual Suspects. Have we canceled Usual Suspects? Is it done? Because of Spacey? Like, are we not allowed to have fun with that movie anymore? I don't know. I need a ruling from the outrage police. I like Kawhizer Soze, but I don't know if Usual Suspects is just out because Spacey's the key character in it. I assume we just kind of send that to the Pacific Ocean and don't think about it again. But I like Kawhizer Soze. Speaking of movies, Hartley wants to know, if you do the rewatchables for The Town, which by the way, we're doing next month, he says the whole movie hinges on John Hamm extracting the Fenway robbery plot from Blake Lively. Why would Renner's deadbeat sister know the intricate details of their next heist? She's a total liability, and this is the not fucking around crew. Even if she knew they were up to something, how would she know enough to spoil it? Didn't make sense. She would even have the info. Ruins an otherwise great movie for me. It's a hole. I got to think about it some more before the rewatchables. It's tough. If anybody can come up with a good explanation for this, please help. The mailbag at theringer.com. It's tough. I also think, man, that I don't want, I can spoiler The Town, right? It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
I just think the bank teller gets arrested, Rebecca Hall. I think there's just overwhelming evidence that she was colluding with these guys, even though she wasn't. And then Ben Affleck leaves town at the end and leaves, $5 million with her or whatever it was. And then she goes and does this ice skating rink. Like, what does she just drop the money off? There's a lot of nitpicking stuff there. But I think at some point, John Hamm's like, you were in on this bank robbery all along. Where's your cut? And she's just in jail and they're just trying to get information out of her for 5 years. Well, we'll find out more of the rewatchables next month. Me, Chris Ryan Russillo. Last question is from John L. in Scotland. Shout out to Scotland. He says, sad but true, the 2020 Lakers are basically the Pelicans from 2 years ago. Just replace Drew Holiday with a 35-year-old LeBron, Mirotic with Kuzma, and Boogie with a fragment of his former self. They even still have Rondo. It's pretty good. I mean, as you know, I'm pro Laker bashing on this podcast. The most confusing thing for me, I was thinking about their team, and I'm the same person who genuinely believes Davis is a good MVP pick at 8-1. And I think he could just solve any problem they have just by being incredible and kicking ass for a season with LeBron as the 1B to his 1A. If those two guys are aligned and kicking ass, as Kevin O'Connor pointed out on theringer.com on Monday, the rest of this stuff doesn't totally matter, but it still does matter because we see in basketball every year, you need 7-8 guys. And you need Fred VanVleet, and you need, JJ Barea and Eddie House and James Posey. You need all these dudes, but you also need a happy team. I'm looking at the Lakers. I can't shake the fact that LeBron and Davis succeed at the same position, the 4. And if they're gonna play together, ideally, you'd want Davis to play the 5. Well, he doesn't want to play the 5. He wants to play the 4. So then you sign JaVale McGee and Boogie Cousins. They're going to split time. Can't play those guys together. So now I'm going to have LeBron and Davis and Boogie Cousins or JaVale, the 3 of them playing together. That seems a little weird because you basically have to have Davis defending the other team's best forward, offensive forward. The other 2 guys aren't going to do it. Well, where do Kyle Kuzma and Danny Green play then? All right, maybe you could play Danny Green at 2 guard. I can't play Kuzma there. I also have KCP and Jared Dudley. Those guys are, they're small forwards or they're a 2. But then I also have Rondo, Bradley, Quinn Cook, and Alex Caruso. I just can't figure out. They have 1, 2, 6, 8. They have 12 guys. I think at least 10 of those guys are going to be expecting to play. And their best lineup, if you just said who are your best 5 guys, is probably LeBron, Davis, Boogie, Kuzma, and Danny Green, with LeBron at point guard. So who's guarding Dame Lillard? Danny Green? I can't wrap my head around this roster. And I feel like there's one more trade coming with Kuzma. Now, people think Kuzma's going to sign with Clutch, and people have thought that's going to happen for a while, and he just got rid of his agent. And it seems like Kuzma is in on the Clutch wagon. But I can't, like Bradley was one of the worst offensive players in the league the last 2 years. Rondo really has not been reliable for 5 years. Quinn Cook, okay, I guess. Is your 11th man, maybe? Caruso? Advanced metrics were pretty good on Caruso playing in meaningless games, but I'm not a KCP fan. I can't figure this team out. And if you're playing LeBron, Davis, and Boogie, then Kuzma's the odd man out at that point. And Kuzma's playing for, I think, a contract extension a year from now contract extension. But I don't know. It's a weird team. I have the same feeling about it that I did with Philly last year, where it just seems like there's a piece missing or they're one move away from being more interested than they are now. All right. If you want to email any mailbag questions to us, do it. Do the mailbag at The Ringer. All right. So this Kevin Costner pod, I really wanted to go 2 hours with him. I made the mistake of not seeing how much time we had beforehand. And it turned out, I think we had like 75, 80 minutes, something like that. So I'm going to have to bring him back. Yeah, as you'll hear at the end, he's going to have to come back. But he came on to promote Yellowstone, which is just a juggernaut. I think it is the most watched show of the summer. It's season 2. It's happening right now. You can watch it. You can catch up on old episodes, but he's on it, and he's obviously the biggest star in it, and he's one of the biggest stars of the last 35 years. I've been dying to have him come on. You'll hear all the stories of our background. And man, this is great. Kevin Costner right now. Been waiting for this for like 5 years. You even came to a Grantland anniversary party. Yeah. And I was like, I got to get you on a podcast. Yeah. You seemed mildly, relatively interested. Not really. Then I saw you last year and it seemed more realistic. And now you're here, Kevin Costner.
The first one was a party, so you're kind of going. Listen, I also understand. I was like raised with wolves because it's like, what's a podcast?
Yeah. I can tell at the anniversary.
I don't know if we're gonna like drink something. I don't know what's a pod. I mean, there's a whole bunch of nomenclature, with stuff, and you go, I'm here to name my kids. What is that? So podcast was really, I'm not sure.
You basically did a podcast at my house at the anniversary party because it was like 5 of us and we were just asking you questions. Yeah. And then at the end, I was like, this is what a podcast would be like. We just record this.
Yeah. Well, that was worth it. That was worth it. No, and the dinner was, I knew we were headed for each other.
So. Yeah, it was going to happen. Yeah. It was bound to happen. And you live outside L.A., so you don't come in that often. You've been, Santa Barbara, like forever?
Yeah, I went out there 15 years ago. I married a second time. And, sometimes women, they really help you with things. It was a beach pad, and I bought it between Revenge and Field of Dreams. I had a nightmare experience up there. I had 4 days in between these movies, long story. But where I stayed, my kids were in rose bushes. They were in all kinds of, it's like, this wasn't relaxing at all. And I kind of made my first movie star thing. I called up a realtor and I said, hey, I need to see property on the beach. And the guy goes, I want to see houses. And I said, I don't want a railroad. I don't want a road. I want to like walk on the beach. And they go, well, when do you want to see this? And I said, I'd like to see it today. And they said, well, we can't do that. But let me look at some listings. Can you go tomorrow? I said, yeah, I will go tomorrow. I bought that place that same day and looked at 5 and bought it. I could flex where I never could flex before in my life financially. I said, I need this, and started to go ever since. And when I finally met my second wife, we would go up there, and she did this really simple thing. She said, why are we going back to L.A. on Sunday night? Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
I go, well, because I work. She goes, well, do you have work tomorrow? I said, no, but I have to do meetings. She said, what kind of meetings? And I'm going, well, I have like a meet. Yeah, I got to keep things going. She goes, don't you think those same people would come up here?
Oh yeah, because you're pretty powerful at that point.
Well, but your power is always in if you think that's what you think. I mean, I never felt like I could flex. Suddenly now I can flex. I kind of hate that personality to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't like that to begin with. I always thought I kind of had power, just the power to say no. But the thing that she did coming into my life was, if you're conservative, you think that you have something to do on Monday if you're brought up in a blue collar background. Well, I go to work, and she just kind of opened my eyes, like the scales came off, and she did it real gently, and it was like, why are we going back? She goes, just because you think you're supposed to be back on Monday, because I grew up in a family where you had 1 week vacation, and then my dad worked there 20 years, and he got the second week.
Yeah.
And back to work on Monday. I remember that. I go, wow, we're in Yosemite. Why are we going? But we had to, because that's what my dad did. And she looked at me and she goes, why don't we stay till Tuesday? And we did. And we started where she I should have been old enough to think for myself, but it took her to kind of do that. And then when we got married, we moved up there, and we've been there for 15 years. And I wake up on the ocean every day.
I was flipping channels 2 weeks ago, and Night Shift was on with Michael Keaton and Henry Winkler, which is one of my favorite 80s movies, and was the movie that made Michael Keaton a star.
Yes.
You're in this movie. You're in the morgue. There's a big party in the morgue after they have all these call girls, and there's Kevin Costner,
right?
One of the frat guys helping somebody do like a beer chug or something.
Yeah.
This was like 1982.
It was.
Was that your first break?
It was. Well, not so much my first. I tell you, my first break was when I finally started to listen to myself. And when you come from a conservative background, you're always, kind of in a pleasing mode. You don't want to rock the boat. My brother was in Vietnam. Last thing I wanted to do was be a pain in the ass sort of thing. So I kind of grew up playing by the rules, going to go that particular direction. And one day I thought I really needed to think for myself. Now, most people listening as a gee, Kev, we all think for ourselves, but I didn't sometimes. I wanted to please.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed to get out of that business and chase my own thing. So that was probably the biggest break I ever had in my life. Was I actually had an internal conversation with myself. I said, you can't just be pleasing everybody the rest of your life. You have to do what you know you can do, even though no one, and go that direction. But
did you know you wanted to be an actor, or you were just a handsome guy who knew you should do something?
No, but I knew I was a storyteller. And if I kind of retrace the breadcrumbs of my life, I see, I grew up doing music in the Baptist church. I grew up doing poetry. I grew up writing stories. So if I look back, but the reality was I thought people that were on the screen were born on the screen. I didn't compute that you could just do something. I also came from the background that if you're going to do something, you'd have been taking drama in high school. And I said, well, the people who did drama in high school were nerds. I didn't like that department. I didn't want to hang out of it. I went to Cal State Fullerton. Yeah. I found myself want the breadcrumbs again. I wandered into that theatrical department. Everybody was barefoot. Everybody smoked cigarettes. Everybody sat cross-legged on the floor. It was a very bohemian thing. And I thought, I'm not interested in that either. That kind of, you look the part.
Yeah.
And so I kept brushing up against it, being pulled back away from it. But finally, when I looked back, I said, I can do this. I like this storytelling thing, and I'm gonna burn my ships. I'm burning my ships. I'm
so
Cortez.
the big show was then your next big break, but then you get cut out.
You get cut out. But I want to go back to that thing you mentioned about
Night Shift?
Night Shift, because there's something kind of interesting happened there.
Yeah.
I was asked to go down and read. There was a movie being cast in Hollywood, and I was a stage manager at Raleigh Studios, and I was asked if I could go, and I said, well, I said, and they go, look, you'll get your SAG card. I was having a hard time getting my SAG card.
Yeah.
So they said, if you go read, it was for Flashdance. I read opposite every girl in town that was up for that role. The most beautiful girls, young girls, and girls that we all know today came through there. Demi Moore, Sean Young, all these different people. I mean, you just keep going right down the list. And I read opposite, but what you have to understand is I was glad I was doing that every day. It was a scene where I was getting slapped the shit out of. and Michael Nuri, who ended up playing the part, I was never intended to play the part, but the big deal was I got $325. It was scale. I'd never made that kind of money. I was working at Raleigh Studios for $3.50 an hour. And so I got my SAG card, the thing that I had been wanting. And it's really funny in life, if you get your SAG card, everybody goes, well, do a commercial. Well, it's not that easy. You have to do it. Actually, it was Francis where I got it. But the reality was because I had my SAG card, I could do that reading. And then right after that, somebody said, they just saw me and they go, hey, we need some extras and we got to pay him SAG. I did the Netflix thing. I did the night shift thing. And then a day later, they were shooting Francis with Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard on the same lot.
Yeah, that's a big movie.
And they needed another SAG that maybe he's going to say something, maybe he's not. I don't even know my own biography anymore. But the reality was,
I probably know it better than you.
Within 5 days, I had done Night Shift, Table for Five, and Francis, all for SAG, and I just kept going. $360, $360, $360. It was like 4 days of it, and it was a big deal for me.
Yeah,
it was a really big deal.
Did you think The Big Chill? You thought you were going to be in that movie with flashback scenes and stuff, right? Which you filmed.
Yeah, I thought I would be, and at the end of the day, it didn't make it.
I think you're right. You lived on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think there's some deleted costs.
But everything happened for me in that particular movie that needed to happen. I was around the right guy and the right actors at the right time. Wally Nocita, probably the most important, not the most important, that's a weird title, but she's a casting director.
Yeah.
She's tough, really tough. I didn't figure a person like her would even like me, but she was a force of will for me. And in Lawrence Kasdan had just come off the Body Heat, and now he's doing The Big Chill. And a lot of times a studio has to approve everybody. Larry was going to.
And didn't he rate Raiders too? Like he
wrote Continental Divide, Raiders, and Empire.
Yeah.
So he was his trajectory
He's
was
the
like
guy.
this, but he was it, and he really was incredible. And so now he's doing Body Heat was just blew people away. It was so good.
Yeah.
Now he's doing The Big Chill, and he's casting all the young actors that are really, out of New York, out of Juilliard. And he had to run those all by the studio, but there was one part that he didn't have to run by the studio. It was just could be him. And at least that's what I was told. And Wally kept saying, this guy. And he gave me the part. And everything I kind of based a lot of what I do came out of that experience. So not being in the movie, people don't understand. I didn't look at my movie as a one and done situation. I mean, I guess if I was in some state and a movie came in, like The Circus, and they said, hey, do you want to do these lines on the street corner? And now I take everybody to theater and that line's not in there. Maybe my career is never. But I had a bigger idea about what was going to happen. And when I was cast in that movie, I actually knew at that moment everything had happened.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happened with that movie. Everything that needed to happen for me at that point did.
Well, more importantly, Kasdan liked you and decided to put you in a movie.
He did. He put me in a second one. He put me in Silverado. But it was the moment I got the part, I knew my life had changed. Not the moment I filmed it. Not the moment I went down the red carpet. Not the moment. It's like, listen, people can look at a game and tell when it's lost.
True.
People can look at a season and tell when it's over. People can look at a moment, and I kind of choose to look, at things really athletic. I even direct with a chalkboard sometimes. If I get into a big action scene, I get a chalkboard out. And so you got to be here when this explosions happen. This is where you got to be.
You're like Belichick.
Yeah, this is where you have to be. Because most people, when I realize when you're looking at them and they're giving you chin boogies, their heads going up and down, they're really saying, quit looking at me, don't talk to me, I don't know what you're saying.
Right.
But they're doing that. And so when that bomb goes off and they don't go, and you think, what the heck happened here? I was really clear with them. So I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting a chalkboard. When that goes off, you're here.
Yeah.
And then when his head goes up and down, there's a visual and he's not frightened. But a lot of times, young actors or whatever, they're doing this, but they're not getting, they're just thinking, don't look at me anymore.
Yeah.
And you move off. They move off.
So Silverado, I remember that one, but the one the first movie I remember seeing you in was American Flyers.
Yeah.
People think Breaking Away is the best bicycle movie ever. That's a whole, it's the consensus. I'm an American Flyers guy.
Interesting.
I just love that movie,
Yeah.
and it was on cable for like 2 straight years.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw it. It was just on HBO and HBO2
And when you're,
over and over
when you're
again.
on detention and being
Oh,
kept in
yeah.
a room, you're like Papillon when you walked out of there. 10. Remember when he took that extra
Oh,
step?
yeah.
Remember he 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he went 5.
Right.
That was a great moment in that movie. That thing. It really. That's like one of those things when a writer hits something so perfectly that you can't explain life in prison, and then taking that extra step was like, I love the poetry of stuff like that.
So you were like one of the best bicyclists in the world was the gimmick, but you were dying.
Yeah.
And you were like in crazy shape, and the bike scenes are like incredible in that movie. And there's what was it called? Like the Hell on the something.
Yeah, Hell in the West.
Hell in the West. They're shooting helicopter
Yeah.
shots, and like you're doing all those stuff, and you're in like crazy shape. And that movie was successful, but I think coming out of that, people are like, all right, that guy's somebody.
I'm a Breaking Away fan. I mean,
yeah, it's a great movie.
I'm a Breaking Away fan. I'm like, it's like, I thought that was great. But the writer was the same writer who wrote Breaking Away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
what was his name? Steve
Tish.
Tessich? Or Tish? Yeah.
Tessich, yeah.
Tessich.
And we lost him right away about 2 years after that. But that guy, I think, would have been a friend for life. There was something about him that was I really liked him. He was a real deal.
Well, when people, you're obviously the GOAT for sports movie actors. You've been in what, 6?
Could be, yeah.
American Flyers always gets left out.
Yeah.
They always go.
Draft day
Durham,
gets left out.
Yeah, you've been in like 6 or 7.
You pancake eating.
Well, Draft Day came around because they actually. I want to talk about that in a second. No Way Out was when it all took off, right?
No Way Out was a movie right after Silverado. I had been called by Orion. They wanted to have a meeting with me. So I went and talked with a guy named Eric Pleskow.
Yeah.
There was 4 guys that really ran Orion: Mike Medavoy, Bill Bernstein, Arthur Krim, and Eric Pleskow. And they'd seen Silverado, which was a catchy movie.
Yeah.
I had a scene-stealing kind of part. You can see it on paper. It's like, a lot of people go, oh, that person stole the movie or whatever. That can happen on Broadway a lot with really cagey actors. In film, it's on paper already.
Yeah.
You can see, unless you're just a dummy. You go, you can steal this movie. But you're not supposed to steal it. You're working with everybody. You can tell what the flashy role is. Silverado was all of that for me. That was
Did you think about that when you started writing stuff, like how creating roles like that for people?
No, you think about it. You just know it. But, you want that to happen. When I'm a leading man, I need people to do the dance. I've always embraced the idea of somebody stealing or scene-stealing things because I know where I stand. I know how it works. And but that particular movie, I knew had that kind of juice on it. And so I get a call from Orion. So we'd like to talk to you about movies, and they pointed out some movies to me, and all of them I didn't really, really care for. And I said, but if you really want to do something, I did read a movie that I liked. And they said, what was it? And I said, it was this movie over at Warner Brothers called Finished with Engines. And they said, what? I said, it's really good. I said, I'd do that movie with you. And so they read it and they liked it. Finished with Engines is a naval term for shutting down the engines. Those you see on the Titanic, you see all that full ahead, 1/3, those brass things.
Yeah.
Well, at the very bottom of it in the naval terms is the last thing. It says finished with engines when you turn them off, right? That became No Way Out.
Oh, wow.
So it was a movie I had found and said to them, I'll make this movie. And so they did. And that movie came out really well, but they did an interesting thing. That movie was shot before Untouchables. And so I went right from No Way Out to Untouchables. And what happened was Orion it was called a mini major, kind of smaller movie, although they were making Oscar movies.
Yeah.
They didn't have the kind of dough that the big studios had. And so they looked at it and they go, we're going to let Untouchables come out first. And then I came out, they held it, and then came out about 2 months later.
Oh, wow. I feel like now looking back, I always thought No Way Out came out first, but I guess
it was
you're right.
shot first.
Yeah.
But they played, and I was thinking, what's going on here? Well, they're going to let that go. All right. Well, I like No Way Out. I think it'll work. But they played that and used the drum roll that came with that movie and rolled into No Way Out. So they played an interesting chess game with that movie.
And No Way Out's one of those movies. It's always on cable still, even all these years later.
Yeah.
It's just one of those movies that is always going to work.
Yeah.
The spy thing with the twist at the end, and it's just
Well, I met
somebody
I
getting
met
murdered.
Sean Young on that Flashdance thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I met Sean Young, and I thought, this girl is classically beautiful. This girl looks like a girl from the 40s. You know what I mean? Like, you know, those black and white traditional headshots. She looked like that, and I remembered her, and I
mean, people thought she was going to be an A+ lister at some point. She was a little too wacky, right?
Didn't always go the way she probably wanted.
Yeah,
but she was perfect for us, and she was perfect in that movie. And, you know, so,
and then in Untouchables, you're in with De Niro and Connery, and all of a sudden you go from 4 years, you get cut out of Big Chill, and now you're in a movie with De Niro and Connery.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was, and then at that point I knew I was going to direct, and you know, people were thinking I didn't direct yet, but I was already headed that way because I worked at Raleigh Studios down here on Bronson, you know, right across from Paramount. That's what I knew I was going to do, and sometimes people said, well, you know, well, you're moving kind of quick. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I've been waiting forever to do this.
Because this happened a little older with you.
I didn't emerge as an 18-year-old. I didn't have that moment, that risky business moment of going across and, you know, it was later. But that was a function of me deciding in my senior year in college that this is what I was going to do.
You know, they always say that about celebrities, that the age you become famous is the age you're trapped at. And if you become famous when you're older, it's a huge advantage. I think this is like a Clooney thing.
Yeah.
Because Clooney was always like, the best thing that ever happened to me is when everything hit for me. I was like 29, or 31.
That's kind of where it hit. That's kind of where it hit for me. And you won it earlier. Trust me.
Yeah,
you think you're deserving of it. You think you're better than everybody else that's out there. You can't figure out why. It's not whatever, but it's a bigger thing. But as I was working at Raleigh, I was always thinking I'm going to direct. So what happened was, as this kind of my trajectory was moving the way it was moving, that was in my mind.
You're thinking like, this is all leading to me getting to direct my own movie.
Yeah.
What was your experience with fame? As it like ballooned all of a sudden? You went from, you're just walking down the street and now all of a sudden you're like, this guy people are staring at.
You know, it's funny. I one of the first things I went to, I was asked to by Mike Medavoy. He said, I'm going to go to this Lifetime. He was busy. He'd have to go to all these functions around. I didn't even know the terms of things. In fact, on the night of my Oscar, I didn't go to Spago's or any of these places. And I think I pissed a lot of people off, but I had no idea that you were supposed to.
Yeah.
People have no idea that I didn't really even know about the world, except that I just wanted to tell stories.
Yeah.
I didn't know the culture of it. I didn't know the whole thing that you make the rounds. I didn't know what was going to happen with our movie. So I got a restaurant with 100 people that worked on the movie and got 60, 70 tickets for the Oscar and said, well, we'll be together. So I never made the lap.
And people are like, that fucking Costner, what a prima donna.
I had no idea. I was sure they weren't going to let my 50 friends in.
Right.
But I didn't know that was a thing that you did. And so, you know, it's really, really, really strange. I forgot where we were at. We were
basically like when the trajectory flipped.
Well, I think maybe what George was saying too, it's like, I wasn't that impressed. I was just anxious to keep working.
Yeah.
That's where I was playing. That's how I played myself out. But the first time, I was saying that I went to a function, Mike Medavoy asked me, and he said, hey, I'm going to go to this Lifetime Achievement Award. And I had no idea even what that was. I know I must have lived in a cave, like I was saying. And so I go to the Beverly, not the Hilton or something, right?
Yeah.
Where they do a lot, Golden Globes. And it was for Gregory Peck. And yeah, I knew who he was and loved who he was. And I remember walking in and the bulbs going crazy, flashing, I mean, blinding. And I walked in and I don't think No Way Out had come out yet. And not a camera went. But I went in and watched one of the great ones, one of the greatest of all, for sure. He really is. And that was impressive to me. And 4 or 5 women who'd worked with him during the course of his career stood up and talked. And that part, I'm kind of in love with the poetry that our business can be. It's not always necessarily is. I love I'm a romantic about what, we can do and what we can be.
Let's take a break to talk about M&M's. One of my favorite parts of kicking back to watch a game or some movie I streamed is enjoying my favorite treats, game day treats, movie treats. Well, you can take it to the next level with the new M&M's hazelnut spread chocolate candies, guaranteed to deliver a delicious combo of hazelnut spread and milk chocolate in every bite-sized piece. It's going where no hazelnut spread has gone before, right inside M&M's chocolate candies. Oh my God. If you love M&M's chocolate candies and you love hazelnut spread, just wait until you try these together for the first time. Enjoy them on their own or use them to dress up your other favorite treats. Imagine them baked into cookies or sprinkled on top of your go-to ice cream flavor. Or my go-to move with M&M's, you make popcorn and just dump the M&M's in the popcorn. They get a little like melty. I love those. I am a huge M&M's fan. They make that. Do you know they make the giant M&M's now?
Giant?
It's like an M&M bar. It's like a chocolate bar with like big M&M. I mean, they just continue to delight me with all the stuff they're coming. But check this one out. Go hazelnutty and try the new M&M's hazelnut spread chocolate candies today. Was there some point where you just felt like you could get any movie you wanted? Because everybody has that run when they become like red hot. Were like projects just getting thrown at you?
No, they were being thrown.
You didn't know which one to do and all that stuff?
Well, listen, I postponed dances because I didn't have my ending right.
Yeah.
I didn't have it right, and I didn't want to shoot. And then, so the movies I put in front of it were Field of Dreams and Revenge. And because I waited, because I knew that the ending wasn't right, I watched really, really carefully, much probably more than I was always educating myself, but in a way the gun had gone off and I go, I'm going to be directing this time next year.
Yeah.
And I really was watching close. And so
we skipped Bull Durham though.
Huh?
We skipped Bull Durham though. Didn't it go Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, Revenge, and then Dances?
Yeah, I was, but I really focused on, the Field of Dreams wasn't supposed to happen. It just wasn't supposed to happen. It was a movie that was going to go the same time as Revenge, and basically Revenge just kept getting postponed, and I finally, I just said to them, look, I read this little movie about the corn. And I really like it. And if you don't sort this out, I'm going to do that. And it was a Ray Stark, a legendary producer, tough guy. He said, I'll sue you. And I said, I know. That's kind of what comes out of your mouth. And reminded him at some point that he was a smart guy. Aren't you a smart guy?
Yeah.
And I said, you need to figure this out because you stretched me too much. So I did both of those particular movies. And that's when I came to dances, and again, we've woven a tale, and I think I've forgotten the kernel of what fostered this whole.
Well, I thought all the choices were really cool, though.
What's that?
Just the movies you picked.
Oh, you said
all
about
them
any movies.
each other.
You said movies, anyone you want.
Yeah, because you do two baseball movies in a row.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
People didn't think that was a very good idea on my part, but they were undeniable to me. They were just undeniable, and I believe I'm a script guy, and I don't believe in the elements. I believe in the script. And
so when you read the Bull Durham script, you must have gone nuts.
No, it was. We didn't change a word.
Yeah,
I've had about 10 scripts like that where we
really?
didn't change a word. Which is probably maybe 8 more than most people. But they're always manipulating them. I've been a part of some things that just didn't change because they were written and rewritten, and I guess that's what written and written means too. You need to catch me if you can.
We'll edit that out.
But the idea of doing anything I want, and I remember, so I postponed dances, and then now those 2 movies were over, and now I was prepping this movie, couldn't get the money, found $9 million overseas. Both movies, 2 American movies I made, Open Range and Dances with Wolves, I couldn't get them made at first here. And the first money came from overseas. Dances did, Open Range
What's
did.
crazy is you couldn't get Dances made. You'd had like 7 hits in a row.
Yeah, it was. They didn't want to make it, so it was like, okay, I'm going to make this.
What were they just thinking like that? Like, no, we're 1800s
Westerns. Well, here's the problem.
The
problem was me because I did tell them that it was going to be long. I told them ahead of time. I said it's going to be 3 hours. I told everybody because I went through the system twice. finally on the last one at Warner Brothers, when they said, we'd really like to do this, but when you did the subtitles, and they go, it's going to be long, it's going to be 3 hours, and it's going to be subtitles. We'd really like to do this with you, Kevin, but we don't think we can. And two guys who are my friends to this day and were really helpful in my career, they said no to me. And I said, just before I walked out the door, I was in with Jim Willis, my partner. I said, I probably should let you know about one other thing. And they said, well, what's that? I go, I need to have final cut. And I got up and walked out. And as I walked out, my producing partner, if that was the door and this big round table and Warner, but as soon as we got on the other side of the door, and I used this for inspiration in 13 days, actually, as soon as we got outside the door shut, and he goes, what was that about?
Yeah.
And he had to talk like that because everyone go, what was that about? And I go, what about? He said, the final cut thing.
Yeah.
Why would you say final cut? And I said, well, didn't you hear him? And he goes, what? He goes, they don't know that the subtitles are really important to the sense of humor. I said, and they don't know that the length is really not intentional. It's just how long the story goes. I said, how can I let my film go to this place if we don't have final cut?
Yeah.
And then we walked down the hall.
I mean, there's 17 ways that film could have gone wrong if you didn't have final cut.
Right.
They could have said, like, hey, we took out a half hour.
Listen, it all could have gone wrong with me because I was the only one that could ruin it once I decided to make it because I had a great script. Now I'm thinking, this is a great script, but I don't have a lot of experience here. So, and
you had to also be the lead actor in it.
What's that?
You had to be the lead actor and direct it, which
exactly.
I'm always amazed when anyone can do that. That's just really hard.
I don't
to
know.
remember what you're performing. Bill Hader's,
Yeah.
I'm friends with Bill Hader, who's doing that now with Barry, where he's directing a lot of the episodes, he's writing them, but he's also performing in it. And he said it really took him a couple episodes just to figure out how to just become these different people on the set, where I'm in charge, but now I'm acting.
My problem was I give myself too few takes. I kind of like do it, and then I start to move on, and finally my producing partner says, you need to give yourself more takes. You're not rushing anybody else except yourself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Don't rush yourself. And
so you need like an offensive coordinator to just get you to get to do a second take.
Give yourself another, whatever. Don't rush yourself. Because I was like, sometimes the scene wasn't over, and I go, "That's great, we got that." And it was like I realized the camera was on me. I'm looking at everybody else.
Well, you'd hit this point, and I want to go backwards to talk about the two baseball movies in a second. But you would hit this point heading into that movie where people were like, fuck this guy. He's going to direct a 3-hour Western. Yeah. And you could...
Well, none of them knew it was going to be 3 hours, but they were saying, fuck this guy. For some reason.
He's going to direct it?
And
that goes back to,
that goes back to your core question. You said, could you do anything you wanted? What happened was right after Field of Dreams and Revenge, I get offered Hunt for Red October.
Oh. Seriously?
Yeah.
You've been good in that.
And I had to say no and they go, what? And Mace Newfield, who I got No Way Out made. He was the guy, but that movie wasn't getting made. It was in turnaround. He was the producer of Hunt for Red October. And they said it'd pay me $5 million. That was like $4 million more than I'd ever been paid. It was also, I was also
30 now.
I was also in the hole.
Yeah.
With having put my own money in dances. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'd like to do Hunt for Red October too. I'd like to have $5 million. I get it. But I gave my word I'm doing this movie. And that set off some weird drum roll that I turned my back on that. And now I'm out there doing some movie that's just going to tank. That started the drum roll from somewhere. I don't know who did it, why, but it was me being arrogant enough to say no to $5 million. But I wasn't saying no to that. I would have said yes to that 100,000 times. But I had already said yes to something else. And I wasn't...
I didn't realize you put your own money in Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
Most people try not to do that.
Well, I know. Listen, I
like it. I'm a big bet on myself guy.
Yeah, one more good deal and we're both out of business. Right. Probably. I've had to do that. And I did that there. I mean, that movie cost $16 million.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a lot. But I didn't have to put in 16.
It's funny, that era of... So late 80s... early 90s was this era of movie coverage. You had Premiere Magazine, Spy Magazine was out there. You had New York Magazine was writing about stuff. And I remember reading all this stuff being in college, and it was the first time I was aware of like the different narratives, never knowing what was true. And I remember reading about like Costner's making this Western.
Yeah.
He's directing it.
Yeah.
And I remember like the kind of snark
Yeah,
that came with it. And
yeah.
and then it became obviously
But I didn't
way bigger
hear,
than anyone thought.
the good news was I didn't hear about that till I came home. I was out in South Dakota for 108 days.
Jesus.
Most movies are like 50, 60 days. Well, this movie was taking it, it was like I only went like 3% over budget, even though I went over all those days.
You've really been in a lot of states.
Yeah.
You've been Iowa, South Dakota,
Yeah.
Colorado. You probably have the most interesting map of where you film movies.
Well, if you do a sequel, you go to the same state. If you do those things, you're going to end up in the same places. But
Let's go backwards a second to Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Was Crash Davis? How much of Crash Davis was Crash Davis, script Crash Davis, and how much of it was Kevin Costner taking the Crash Davis DNA?
Yeah. Well, Ron split that up, but the point was I never changed the dialogue.
Because it always felt like that was like kind of alternate universe Kevin Costner in that movie.
No,
like if you had just been a minor league baseball player, that was
yeah. You. Well, the one thing I got from Bull Durham, I bought that car.
Did you really?
I have some in my garage. That green Shelby.
Seriously?
Cobra. Seriously. I got that.
Put that thing on eBay. You could make Hunt for Red October too. Just fund it yourself.
We could make some dough. That's so funny. Yeah, I wonder what that thing is worth.
Oh my God. Well, especially if it's the Bull Durham car.
Yeah, it is.
I would say that's worth like $700,000.
Yeah. That won't make a movie these days.
No, well, it's indie.
It won't make a movie. But Shelton, he's this toughest guy you'll ever want to meet, and he's just got this heart of a poet. And he played with Gritch and Baylor in the Baltimore organization. But he was always kind of writing in the back of the bus, and he wrote that thing, and it was just letter perfect, and it was like Field of Dreams. I knew that was great, but no one was going to make that either, because I'll tell you what happened. We tried to make it. We were like a couple of hookers on Santa Monica for a month I was going to everybody. I didn't go to Orion, where I'd already made 2 movies with. Why? Why not go there? Well, there was a couple reasons. One, they had 2 other baseball movies. They had Dangerfield's The Scout, and they had 8 Men Out.
That didn't work. 8 Men Out was good.
But the point was, they're not going to take on a 3rd movie, so I didn't want to kind of push my friends into it. I thought, So we went around, and no one would do it. No one would do it. Finally, Fox was going to do it, but they'll do it for $4 million. That's what it needed $6 million to make this movie. But they had worked it so low that Ron was just looking at me. Then I get offered Everybody's All-American, which I really liked. And I said to Ron, Ron, I like this movie, although it changed, and there was parts of it that I didn't like anymore on paper, but I wanted to do Everybody's All-American. But I said, I'll stick with you, but we can only go through this a little bit more. So we still didn't have any success. I called the guys at Orion. I said, listen, this is a baseball movie. I said, it's Thursday. I said, it's great. I know your foreign guys said there's no upside in this movie.
Yeah.
I said, I think it's great. And I said, but you're going to have to tell me tomorrow at noon on Friday. That was Eric Pleskow, the same guy that I talked to about Silverado, right? And about 5 minutes to noon, he called me and said, we'll do it. And they took Bull Durham.
I mean, that's purely, we want to stay in the Kevin Costner business, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should have led with that, but I kept saying the movie's great. The movie's great. And they're going, movie, schmovie.
Well, it's great for you because it was a great part. It's become an iconic sports movie, but more importantly, you got to show off your baseball skills.
Yeah, it was.
And that was an era where before that movie, most times when people were in a movie, it was usually an actor they were shoehorning into a sports movie who couldn't actually carry it. Everybody was so impressed, like you looked like a catcher.
I had a thing happen on. He went out and cast all the teams and that we would play against, and they were all like AA, AAA players.
Yeah,
and they all came to the park, Bull Durham Park. And so there was 60 guys up there, and they were dividing things. Everybody established that they could play, but they were all having hitting practice. And I was really ducking my turn. I was just thinking, Jesus, I was just kind of ducking my turn. And it was a big park, Grady Richardson, who actually coached at Atlanta.
Yeah.
He was the minor league guy, and he was
So you felt like a ninth grader at varsity baseball tryouts.
I just
or something.
didn't want to go up there. I hadn't really even worked out, but I remember finally I was like, wow. And it finally got to the point where I did, and nobody gave a shit who was hitting.
Yeah.
But when I went up there, I could feel everybody kind of just stop talking because there was 15 guys in right, there was 6 guys here or whatever. And
they're like, oh, here comes the big shot.
Something happened that never happened to me before. Number one, I went up there. I was really, really nervous. That's not what never happened before, but I was really nervous. And I remember the first pitch came, and I fouled it. I fouled it straight down, but I fouled it, and which was the inspiration for me to just dribble that ball out in Field of Dreams. It just dribbled out like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. I remember telling the director on Field of Dreams, I said, wouldn't it be better I said, it's really hard to miss a ball when you throw it up in the air. It's one of the hardest things to do is miss something on purpose. I can drop something, legitimately drop it, but to drop something on purpose, even Olivier can't do that. Yeah. It looks like you dropped it. I said, but if I hit the ball and it went, as the guy playing with Shoeless Joe Jackson, you want to hit it out there for him. You really want to. And so I said, rather than miss it, what if I top this ball and it just dribbles out 6 feet where I have to go get it? And he goes, you can do that? And I said, yeah, I play street ball a lot. I can do that. So I did that. That was the inspiration. But that same thing happened to me right there in Bull Durham. I take a swing and I hit it. And where I should have been humiliated, I wasn't. I was thinking, shit, man, at least I
got some wood on it.
I just tipped it. And it was like my first cut, I tipped it. So the second pitch, I hit what only could be termed as the softest line drive you'd ever want to see. It just had nothing on it. It kind of...
A number.
It wouldn't even have bent the grass if it hit it. But it went to the shortstop out there. There was 3 or 4 shortstops because everybody was hanging out. He just kind of put his glove up and it was kind of limply... it had nothing on it, right? And I stepped out of the box and I go, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
The same talk I had with myself in college that I'm going to do this. I'm going to take control of my life. I had right there. I said, I'm the only guy here who has a job. Are you kidding me? I'm making over $1 million. I'm the only one here who has a job. And I stood back in there and something happened that never happened before and didn't really happen that day. I hit it over the fence at like 365.
Wow.
I'd never hit a home run in organized baseball. In all the baseball I ever played, I was never a home run hitter. I had a couple inside the park. Never hit one in Little League, in Babe Ruth, in high school. Never hit a home run. I'm 28 years old, 29 years old. I hit my first home run right in front of all these guys.
And then you have to act cool.
Well, I was. I didn't have to run. If I had to run, but I hit a home run.
That's amazing.
I've had these kind of moments in sports, and that was a moment.
Yeah. So that was it. You had the confidence after that.
Yeah. Well, I had the confidence when I had the talk. It wasn't the hit that did it.
Are you taking notes, Kyle? This is what you need to do. Just take deep breath. Remember who you are.
The talk was
next time you play sports.
The talk was the thing.
Self-talk.
Okay, that thing was what everybody else saw. Yeah. Me driving down the freeway after getting the part in Big Chill, my career had changed.
Yeah.
In the freeway, it had changed. I know when I talked to you about when the momentum of something changes, you feel it.
Yeah.
When I had that talk, that's where it happened. The swing was what the swing was, what the world gets to see, but it's not always defining who you are.
Hey, let's take a break. Talk about Google-Fi. Doesn't it feel like most phone plans just weren't made with us in mind? Between bad coverage, paying too much for data you don't ever actually use, and crazy roaming charges, Google-Fi is a phone plan by Google made with features that people like you and I actually want. Features like free international roaming, so you never have to worry about calling up your provider, let them know you'll be traveling. 3 networks in one, so you can stay connected wherever you are, from your home to your office and everywhere in between. Google-Fi works on your favorite smartphones. You don't have to switch phones just to switch plans. It's as easy as just downloading the app, and you only have to pay for the data you use. Plus, with bill protection, if you ever do use a lot of data, your bill is capped at a reasonable amount. Learn more at fi.google.com. That is fi.google.com. Switch to Google-Fi a phone plan by Google. And since we're here, don't forget about the rewatchables. Reservoir Dogs coming Friday here, Tarantino week on The Ringer. Check that out. Check out the little special 3 podcast thing we did on the old Halloween Unmasked feed. Check out the big picture with Sean Fennessy, all that stuff. Tarantino week. Let's go. All right, back to Kevin Costner. Did you click with Susan Sarandon right away?
Pardon me?
Did you click with her right away?
Yeah. The interesting.
How does that work with actors?
Well,
Sometimes it's there.
Let me tell you what. You want to see a heavyweight fight? There was a heavyweight fight there. And I'll tell you what it was. This part was as good as Crash's part.
Yeah.
Her part was as good as Crash. Nuke had a fabulous part, but that was a career-changing part for someone. And it came down to 2 actors, and I'm not going to tell you who the other one.
Oh, come on.
No,
it's
I
been
can't.
30 years.
No, I can't because the reality is it broke my heart because I knew, and the person that went up for it was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Sexy, smart actress. And I thought, these 2 women, both, if you were a beginning actress, you don't even stand a chance against them because what was on the line there was a second half of a career.
Yeah.
A second career. And Sarandon came in and Ron had to choose between 2 great actresses, and Sarandon got it. And she was.
And you're right. It's her next 8 years of her career.
But it's so weird. Everybody's looking at who got it, and for some reason, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking of the other actress. I'm thinking because Sarandon went on a Sean Connery run.
Yeah.
Like what happened? Where's Sean after Bond or something? She was always a great actress. She had a really great career. There's this like little middle ground, and then Bull Durham came along, and she just showed everybody who she was for the next 25 years.
Yeah,
that was that big a role, and so I kind of go through this business looking sometimes not at what everybody else is looking at.
Well, she's somebody.
Look who won. I'm looking at like, look who lost. What?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I see a different narrative a lot of times in what I see.
She's somebody that almost like an athlete was like a lottery pick. Like she had been in a couple really good movies a little bit earlier. And then as sometimes happens with actresses, sometimes you get a couple of the wrong parts. There's less parts in general.
And
you can go 5 years and not have a good part.
Exactly. But that was a complete. So I'm always cognizant of that. When I'm giving parts, that you change lives.
Because remember Atlantic City with Burt Lancaster?
Yes.
Like she was like you left that movie. You're like, all right, she's a star.
That's
and then
right.
Sometimes you don't get the part for a
while.
And
but that girl felt like a best friend.
Can you explain the Tim Robbins throwing motion to me? So did he throw out his arm? What happened? It's the flaw of the movie.
Listen, I don't think
it's just hard to buy that he's throwing 99 miles an hour.
No, of course not. Yeah, of course not. You see that perfectly. But that's what's so interesting about sports. And about thing, because understand something. Olivier, if he can't really pitch, he might be the greatest actor that ever lived. He ain't going to make it in a baseball movie. And even the non-athlete can look at somebody who is not an athlete and can tell. There's something undeniable about that. Tim played the role, but you can't really always fake baseball. You just can't do it. There's a reality thing there. But Ron totally supported him, and he was everything we needed him to be. But you're not wrong about what you see or what you saw. You can't. It's hard to throw 90 anyway. I threw 84.
What'd you throw in for love of the game? What were you
84.
That was 84. Well, you were older then, though.
Yeah.
Were you 40 at that point? You must have been.
I was over 40. I
think.
Ricky Green was the umpire. He's the one that told me. Ricky was a national. He was a professional baseball ref.
Yeah.
And umpire. And I happened. I tried to be careful with all those young guys because they were out of the farm system too. I had brought my friend Augie Garrido in to play the manager of the Yankees.
Yeah.
And then he would also go pick the other athletes that would play in the movie that didn't have really speaking roles. So Augie came and he did all that. And I was real conscious because a lot of these guys, had an opportunity at careers. And the last thing I needed to do was hit them because I was getting revved up in front of a crowd and throwing and hitting them.
How many people at For love of the game? Did you how many extras were
They
in
probably 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000, sometimes. Maybe not that. I mean, we moved them around.
Yeah.
There's a couple stories there that you can't believe. Maybe we'll get to them. But anyway, with that thing, I was throwing about 200-300 pitches a day for about 18 days.
It's one of the great pitching performances in the history of baseball.
And
I don't know how you didn't blow your rotator cuff out.
I was in pain. And Chili Davis came back, and I was in a thing. He goes, good God, what's happened to this guy? He just came back from the World Series. And I was in there, and the blood was pumping at my heart on everything. And I finally just vomited. The pain was so great. And Chili goes, what are you guys doing? And they were doing everything wrong. We ended up getting the actual trainer for the Yankees. And I hope I'm not talking out of school here, but the reality was this guy came to my rescue. I started having to take a little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
I had to take a lot of stuff.
Some recovery.
Well, just to get through the day.
Yeah.
There's no recovery.
You weren't getting suspended.
Well,
it's a
that was my point to him
Yeah.
on the last night, and I'll tell you that story. I used David Cohn. And so I was throwing that many pitches, and I was also getting kind of juiced up too.
Yeah.
And on the last day, we decided we were going, not decide, we knew we were going to do it. We were going to simulate the whole game, day into night, starts in the day, end of night, 6 cameras, all the same cameras that the TV at that time was actually covering Major League Baseball, all the same angles. So it was like a real game.
I actually think it's some of the best baseball footage ever done in a sports movie.
And by that time, everybody knew the game. Everybody knew the pitches. Everybody knew what each batter was supposed to do. But I was going to have to go out and pitch for about 5.5 hours, 6 hours. And so I get the trainer and I said,
You're
hey,
like
man,
Cy Young in the 1800s.
I said, I got him. And I said, hey, look, what if you had a player who was never going to play again? David Cohn, this is his last game. You needed the game. You didn't want to do certain things, but David says you need to do it. I need to do this thing. I said, I'm not going to get through this. And I said, whatever we've been doing, how this dose has been going up, we have to go higher. I said, I have to, you know what I have to do now, because he didn't even know how a movie worked. By now, he'd seen what I'd been going through. I said, I can't get through this. I said, I need a couple green ones. I need the blue ones. And I said, I need one that you haven't brought out yet. I need whatever you haven't brought out yet.
That's what Kyle's taking later.
And because this is in the day. And I looked at him, I was serious. I said, I need to do this because I can't not go anywhere. There's 6 cameras. We're going through the night. And Steve looked at me and he's like, okay. And so we took him. He put a bunch on my arm, wrapped my arm, was going to start in the daylight. And I start to go up the steps. And the last thing he says to me as I'm walking up that steps, he said, you're going to growl at a few people. And I'm thinking, how hyped up am I going to be? But that was his words to me. I'll never forget him. You're going to growl at a few people. And I remember that scene where I almost hit that guy.
Yeah.
In the one pitch, I almost blow the perfect game by throwing at him, and he starts complaining. I come off that mound. I was like, if you ever look at that thing, it was like he said something, I don't know what, something snapped to me. I came about 15 yards or 10 feet down the mound. When you're dead serious about something, you walk off the mound and you're like, you just meet somebody, and then the guy throws me the ball here, and I just catch it here. I never stop looking at it and go back to the mound. But you're going to growl a little bit. Was what happened with that movie.
Unbelievable. I mean, the most amazing thing about that is that nobody in charge of that movie thought, hey, is it a good idea to have Costner and throw 200 pitches a day for 18 straight days? How does real baseball work? Like, where was the baseball consultant?
I knew how baseball worked. I just kind of looked at it. Augie was the one who was like going, Augie was like, this guy's getting world-class athletes to come to Texas, and it's like, it is what he is, but it's just what it was. It's just what it was. And I never had a better time. And in fact, I had this one crazy moment in that game where the cameras, like you asked how many extras were, we moved them around. And those extras out there, they were outrageous. They had gambling going on. They had prostitution going on because they were there all night long. They used cardboard cutouts to make the crowd look bigger. They'd cut holes down where their deal was, and they would be there and their deal would be out, And no one's really saw it, but that's what they were doing.
Jesus.
They were out of control. There were people that basically said, "Hey, do you want to make $150?" And on anybody in the street, and they're going, "Yeah." And they were the ones that were in the stand. And I had been really good to them, really good to these people. I was throwing balls in there constantly. I fungoed them up. I'd throw it up into the upper deck to them. I was doing all this stuff. I was a little bit cranky too. And other people were stiffing them. But for 18 days, I kept those people happy. I really did. And now, for whatever reason, in the simulated game, I think it was that night, might not have, I think it was, a guy hits a big pop fly down the third base line between the dugout and the line. And I start to move on it because I just, you just move on a ball. In big leagues, they let the third baseman get it. They let the catcher get it. I kind of went this way, and none of those guys go after it. And now I'm kind of in this middle ground. So I just kind of run over a little farther. And now I'm about 10 feet from the dugout, and all the crowd happened to be right there. They weren't over here. They weren't over here. They were right there. I catch the ball, and it's like, I get a little tennis clap because I catch it. It's not going to ever be in the film because it wasn't part of that batter's thing. So I start walking back, and as I walk back, somebody in the crowd says, and there was something in me. They
yell the
fuck
you,
Costner?
Costner?
Yeah. And it was like I was almost stepping over the line like Burt Lancaster to go back and pitch, and I stopped, and I turn around, and I walk right back to these 5,000 people who all kind of go, "What's going on?" Because they heard the guy say that. Now I'm right at the base of the dugout, and I said something like, I said, and everybody was like really quiet. And then it was kind of like a bummer to the whole thing, 18 days. And I go, and they were quiet. Now I turned to go back to the mound, and they all turned on me really bad. Now I'm like, if this was a Coliseum, it's like,
oh my
fuck
God,
you, Billy Chappell, fuck you, fuck you, fucking Billy Chappell. And I'm thinking, I'm walking back, and I go, why did I even go over there? What the hell did I do? 18 days just like washed out. Fuck you, Billy Chappell. Fuck you. That whole thing going on. And I'm thinking, wow. So I get back on the mound and look over there. I throw it. Same thing happens. Big pop fly, a major league pop fly, right over in that same place. I take off running again there. I'm not even thinking. Now the third baseman and catcher, they don't move either again. Now I'm in the middle ground. I really can't back out. The ball's coming down. They're going, fuck you, Billy Chappell, fuck. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, I'm right here in front of these people again. And I go, catch it behind your back. And I think, I can't do that. I haven't done that since high school. Just catch it behind. And if I do that, they're going to be miserable. Catch it. I put my hand behind my back, and the ball went in. It went into the glove. I kid you not. 10 feet from this crowd, right at the thing. I don't even know why I did it, because my chances of being humiliated were way greater than catching it. I'm just telling you. But it was that 10-second, it was that talk in college. It was that thing. You got a job at Bull Durham, get up there. And it's like, whatever. I go, just do it. And I went like that, and it went in. The oxygen went out. No one said a thing. I catch the ball. I just look at them. Look at that guy. I turn around. I walk back, and all the crowd turned on him and go, fuck you, that's Billy Chappell. You fucker, they're calling him these vulgar names. Yeah. They just turned on this guy who was like this, and I'm walking back, and it could have gone just as
unbelievable.
It was a weird moment, and it was more like, what do you care? Stick your glove out. And it went in.
Well, and then they're filming the movie in sequence, basically, and you're actually dying on the mound like Billy Chappell. And then Vince Scully's going, there's Billy Chappell. He can barely throw it. And they're cutting to you, and you look like you're dying on the mound because you actually are.
Vince Scully, when I went to see him do that.
He's amazing in that movie.
Let me tell you something.
That's kind of his best performance ever, other than like a Koufax no-hitter.
I went and saw him come narrate, and he narrated the last inning because it wasn't, they didn't do it at that point. And he was down there in Santa Monica, and I went in with the director. And the director is like, okay, we're going to want you to do kind of this. And it's kind of like this. Take a look at this. This is how long the inning is. Well, let me see it. And so they kind of showed it to him. And it was like, probably a 7-minute sequence or whatever.
Yeah.
And Vin goes, okay, well, let's just run it now. Billy Chappell, 40 years
And
old.
he's ad-libbing.
I'm telling you, will he live? Will he go on his life or his life itself? And he said, don't tell anybody that 40 doesn't believe it. He's like going there, right? He gets to the end and he looks at the director and goes, how was that? And we're like, how was like, and the director, I remember Sam Raimi looked and he goes, that was unbelievable. Then he goes, well, do you want to do another one? And Vin goes, what? And he goes, well, maybe you just want to do another one. And it was a fair request, but Vin is like an artist.
Done.
He's sacred.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what? And he goes, well, maybe we'll just get something different. And Vin goes, of course. And he did it again. And there was these other things that came up. And,
That's I can't believe he made him do it again.
I met him 2 times. I met him really early in my career before I even maybe had one credit. It was at Lakeside at the golf course.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of men out there. And I didn't really play golf. And I maybe once a year with the father-in-law. And he was in that thing. You're not going to let me be late for Kimmel, are you?
No. What time
Okay,
did
cool.
you go to Kimmel?
Cool.
What time?
I don't know. I don't care about Jimmy anymore.
2:30.
I don't care about Jimmy
This is so
anymore.
much more fun.
So anyway, I'm out there playing golf, and he's in this foursome. Maybe I made it odd, but no one's saying anything, right? They're all playing, and I'm just struggling, doing the best I can. About the 3rd hole, I'm just being really quiet. I've known him my whole life in a way, grew up with him.
Yeah.
And he looks over at me and he goes, it's your putt, Kevy. Put a Y on my name. It's your cut, Kevy.
That's never happened before, I'm guessing.
My dad.
Okay.
It's your putt, Kevy. And I went like, he just made me feel so great. And then I wanted him to do this. And then he asked me to speak at his retirement.
Which you just said yes to immediately.
No, I said no. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did. You weren't in it?
No, I did.
Yeah,
I spoke for about 10 minutes about him.
How do you turn that request down? You can't do
because
that.
you don't, if you have your shit together, you think there's 50 other people that should be talking here. It was going to be like 3 people. It was going to be Koufax, me, and Gibson. And I said, there's got to be.
Those are 3 Hall of Famers.
You're asking me. I'm telling you. I said no. I was turning it down. I said no. I said, no, there's, no. And it came back was, will you be the MC? And I said, no. I said, if you want a great MC, get Costas. I don't do that either. And they came back and said, no, Vin really wants you to do it. And I said, well, and they said, well, look, you just get up there and you'll do 2 minutes. And I said, I'm not your guy. I make 3-hour movies. I said, I'm not looking to talk long, but if you want me to talk about Vince Scully, I'll talk till I'm done. Because I'm going to talk for everybody. And they went like, Steve Young, Mike Young.
Yeah.
When he worked for the Dodgers, that guy was great to me. He said, you do whatever you want, man. You do whatever you want. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, whatever you want. And so I was able to talk about him. But those were my 3 times of really knowing him.
All right, let's take a break to talk about WGU. It's an online university that's changing lives by changing higher education. It's an innovative, competency-based learning model, can't speak, was designed specifically to fit in the lives of busy adults. WGU is nonprofit and surprisingly affordable, offering bachelor's and master's degrees in business, IT, teaching, and nursing. Move through the material you already know. Spend the time you save learning what you don't, which means the faster you demonstrate what you know, the faster you finish. It's also about half the cost of most other online universities, so you can graduate with far less debt or none at all. WGU graduates work in positions of responsibility for leading companies like Microsoft, Amazon, even the government. Get your $65 application fee waived at wgu.edu/BS. That is wgu.edu/BS. Well, the best thing I've seen you do in that front with the Whitney Houston thing was incredible.
Well, that was an interesting moment too. I've had some interesting moments. That was That was interesting.
It seemed like I had no idea that you guys were close like that.
Well, we weren't close like
or
that.
like that you had a connection.
We
I
had
guess.
a real connection.
Yeah.
We had a real connection, and it kind of started with the Baptist church, and it started with me seeing how nervous she was and tired. Those stories about her makeup and having changed it between the time I say you're going to be okay, and then she changed her makeup, and then looked in the exact opposite way that she would have wanted to look. So I was able to come at that from that perspective.
That's an interesting movie. It's aged. It's a very 90s movie. It has one of the great endings of all time. And I don't know. It's just different. I don't even know what the 2019 equivalent would be, who the actors would be, but it feels like it belongs to a specific
that was
era.
Lawrence Kasdan's first script.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first one he sold to Hollywood, and it sat on the shelf for 16 years. And I said,
Oh
I'm
my
going to
God.
make this movie for you.
And roll the dice with Whitney and hope she can act. And she was good in it.
I felt that she wouldn't be taxed too much on it, meaning she had to be good, but it wasn't all riding on her. It'd be like taking an athlete and putting them in the wrong spot where they can't succeed.
Yeah.
You just go, you ask too much. On the other hand, in this the way that worked, if we watched her close enough, she would be great. But if we would have tipped the scale and added some more scenes, she wouldn't have been great.
Right.
So it was you have to look at everything and see how it fits. It's like you just have to win with the team you either create or have.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the reality of that.
We didn't talk about Field of Dreams, which just had its 30th anniversary.
What?
Field of Dreams, 30th anniversary was this year.
Yeah.
We have a podcast that people like called The Rewatchables, where we broke it down.
That's funny. The Rewatchables.
Well, that's like the ultimate rewatchable.
Yeah,
and that has certain parts of that movie where we're like, oh, he's going to get James Earl Jones. I'm in. I'm going to watch these next 20 minutes. And it has all these hits, but
it's not a gun.
It's funny to
Fingers
watch.
are gun.
I mean, it's such a good movie. What's interesting about it is it belongs to this era when we still believed everything good with baseball. And then over the next era with, you hit the late 90s, they had the strike, the lockout.
Didn't think about that.
And then you have the steroid era.
I never thought about it that way.
And then it's like, because James Earl Jones says that speech about baseball is a part of us, it marks the time, and he does the whole thing, but it's
good and could always be good.
Yeah. And so you watch that now in that prison, and it's like, oh, remember when we felt this way?
I didn't.
It's so adorable.
Yeah.
But that movie.
Gil Hodges, these names,
Yeah, Mickey Mantle. Never thought of him as like anything other than just like the handsome center fielder on the Yanks.
I heard that Ron Shelton was in the airport and he saw Mickey Mantle, and he told me this story, and I forget who told me this story, but he sees Mickey Mantle, and he goes, Ron, did you go up to him? And he goes, no. I mean, that's sports guy. No, I don't do that. The old school is just what it is. No, I don't. Who could love Mickey Mantle any more than somebody like Ron?
Yeah.
But no. And he goes, you should have. He was on Letterman last night. And I think that's how the story went. I said, he goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, he's on Letterman, and I could be getting this all wrong, but this is what Ron told me. He says, and he was going off about the movie Bull Durham, and he said something like Letterman was trying to. Well, no, it's funny, and he goes, no, it's sad. He goes, no, it's funny. Dave was and finally, then Dave, I guess, didn't try to turn him. He goes, well, what do you mean? Because he had a lot of deference to athletes in a way.
Yeah,
he really did. He didn't suffer fools, but he also wouldn't try to make Mickey feel weird.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, that was sad. And what do you mean? He goes, well, that guy could really hit. And he goes, there's a lot of players that never made it into the National League because they just sat behind guys and organizations just kept him. And
especially in his era.
And I know part of the reason that Ron modeled Crash Davis was a player that sat behind Brooks Robinson and won the Triple Crown in the minor leagues like 5 years in a row.
Right.
and they weren't going to give him up. That guy now, is like, they're.
Did you think Field of Dreams was going to work?
Yes.
I mean, it was super ambitious.
But not massively. Yeah, it was ambitious. And for a little movie, it was ambitious for one reason. It was like, I had a real short intake of breath when I said, Dad, can we have a catch? I had to remember that moment forever because that's how I make decisions about, am I going to do a movie? And I go,
yeah.
If we can get to that moment and take that moment where the hair on the back of your neck stands up and where you begin to weep and you don't even know why, that means we're going to have to do all these scenes that are almost dopey correctly. They're dopey, but we didn't try to wink at it. It was real. It was that way. And that's what made that movie dangerous, hard, because it always bordered on dopey to begin with.
Yeah, he's like a borderline lunatic.
And then that's your big ending. That's your big ending. Let's have a catch. And Phil Robinson, I get so much credit for this, but Phil Robinson was the guy who wrote that, adapted. I never would have done that movie based on a pitch. I did it based on the script, and I knew the script had gold dust on it. I didn't know, obviously, that it would become part of the vocabulary. I didn't know that 30 years later it would find its way into the hearts of people the way it did. But it found its way into my heart, and that's why I challenged Ray Stark on Revenge and said, I'm going to do this movie in the corner.
Yeah. We had an 8-minute argument when we did the Rewatchables pod about why they didn't carry the choking little girl onto the baseball diamond so Burt Lancaster didn't have to become Burt Lancaster again.
Why didn't?
So she's choking. Moonlight Graham has to decide whether he wants to cross the line to help.
Walk. You need that long
walk. No, I know.
Walk.
That's where we settled down. But I was like, couldn't they just carried her on the field? Then he could have stayed in the game.
No, it's a good point. you just, and listen, movies are filled with those moments. And only the best of them, you're doing it honorably when you're laughing at it. But just
especially if you see it 30
She'll be doing
times.
handsprings in no time at all.
Right.
He struggled.
You had a couple scenes with him.
He struggled in an iconic scene. And he was struggling that last night. He says, is there enough magic up there for you? Round third, wrap your arms around the things. He was struggling that night. And
struggling because he was old or?
Whatever it was. He couldn't get the lines. He was struggling. And he was getting embarrassed. And it was at night. It was and it didn't look like he was going to get it. And he went over and he kind of whispered that he was kind of hoping that I would leave the set because I think he was embarrassed.
Oh, interesting.
And I said, no. I said, this is almost perfect. We've got it perfect. Yeah, I just said, and I'm staying right here. This is fantastic. And the director hung in there, and Burt finally did it. Man, this guy really talked with his hands.
Yeah.
Son of, wrapped, a lot of actors, they say he was very histrionic.
Yeah.
He would use his hands, and he hit it, and I knew it was perfect, and I wasn't going to go anywhere. So no, I'm right here. We're going to getting through that, So, tell me, Mr. Kinsella, is there enough magic in the air?
One of the things in the research was you had 10 minutes to film the final scene with the way the light was and all the cars and the guy you're throwing to your dad and he's got some glove from 1910.
Right.
And he's got to catch everything in this hard.
And it was kind of, I'd say, in the Tim Robbins thing. Vein of things.
Didn't have a great throwing motion.
It was a catch it and bring it down and incredibly, and has carved out a great career over that movie. I read his book. He wrote a book.
Yeah.
About it, Dwyer Brown, and I had no idea the hardships. But he has traveled the country for the last 20 years, 30 years talking, and he deserves every bit of it because he's such a humble guy. But that career, that moment for him, he has made the most of it, and not in a exploitive way. It's just he's had a hard upbringing, and I'm so glad it was him now.
That was another one of my nitpicks after seeing the movie 800 times. How does Ray not realize sooner his dad's the catcher?
What's that?
How does he not realize sooner that his dad's the catcher?
You've just spent too much time on this
I know,
this
is the whole point of the rewatchables.
You're like, this is the whole point of this interview 5 years later.
They're playing a
pinning me back
game
with my ears.
He can't He doesn't realize his
People
dad's
go,
the catcher?
They're not,
Come on,
Bill
Ray.
has thought more about this than you have, Kevin, and it's clear.
This is the point of that podcast.
You know,
Wait, we got to do Tin Cup
you're
quick.
seeing what is James Earl Jones saying? You're seeing an army of therapists, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, no question.
That's to you. You've broken this down so beautifully. Look, what
that movie's been out for 30 years.
Listen, I got flacked about Leota not hitting left-handed.
I remember that.
It was like, and who I had out there? They had out there for the consultant, the baseball consultant, Rod Dato.
Really?
Yeah, Rod was out there, and hey, Tiger, you probably met him. That's he called everybody Tiger, and he was like, oh man, Kevy, me and you are both going to get killed for this, him hitting right-handed. I said, I got it, and I got it. But
you know what they would do now? They would just flip the
mirror.
They would just flip the mirror, and you'd never know.
Exactly.
Or they would do some CGI thing or something.
I'm surprised you weren't drilling me on that one.
No, because that's already been. People know that one.
You'd beat me up on that.
No, people know that one.
I love the. We had to give. I love the why not just carry the child out, because in a real movie you would do that, but in this thing we needed, and that music
you needed
killed
him
us.
to cross the line.
Oh my God! You said don't do it, and it's like, oh my God, you can't go back. Oh my God.
We didn't talk about Tin Cup. So you do dances, you do a whole bunch of movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then you get sucked back. You got to leave soon, so we got to concentrate just on sports movies.
No, Cup was the same thing. Cup was, I just come out of Waterworld. I just come out of a divorce, and I was pretty beat up, and I said no to Tin Cup. Even though I knew
beat up more from the divorce or from Waterworld, or both?
It was hard. It was really 150-day shoot, 57-day shoot. It was a lot, and I couldn't. I loved it, but I said I'm just not going to go on to another movie. This is one of the times where an agent really went, and not even my own agent, went out on a limb and called me. There's a woman over at CA, and she says, Kevin, I feel like this is a movie you actually need to do.
Yeah.
Emotionally, get with your friend, Ron, who'll protect you, who will be with you. Get with him. I don't want to see anybody else play this guy. And she was right. There was some extenuating circumstances. She understood what I said. She came at me like a really soft backboard, and I was able to wrap my arms around going off and do that movie. And I'll be forever thankful.
Do you stand by the 13 to end the movie? Was it a 13?
What's that?
What did Roy have on the last hole?
12.
A 12?
I always thought that should be our poster. Greatest 12 in history. Greatest 12 in history.
It's funny. I didn't like it the first time I saw it, that it ended with the 12, because I just assumed he was going to win. We're conditioned the hero's going to win the sports movie. But now I'm glad it played out the way it did. The 12 was better.
Glad you turned around on that.
You have to go. Well, you just have to come back another time. This was fun, though, right? We have so many other things we could talk about.
Yeah. When I come
Is this
back,
your first podcast? Have you done one before?
I did one others.
Who?
This
is bullshit.
No, it's God, I'm dropping it. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, well, this is
Jimmy Kimmel's best buddy. They did the man thing.
Oh, Corolla.
Steve,
that's right. I wasn't mad about that. Yeah,
Adam. No, I've had Adam out to the house, and
I wasn't mad. You guys like cars, like there's
Well, he likes cars. When I told him I had the car, I don't know cars. I just know I wanted that car.
Yeah.
Corolla, on the other hand, goes, and that guy is special. I really like him.
The funniest person I've ever met.
I had him up to the house, and he's just such a solid dude.
Yeah. All right, so you have to come back. This was great, though. I'm glad we finally did this. We at least did the sports movie. We didn't talk about draft day, but we can do that next time. Because now the Browns have basically taken draft day, and they made it the real movie. I mean, it's unbelievable. They went and got Baker Mayfield. They turned it around. It's like you're the GM.
Yeah, first they got what's this Manziel.
That was the bad version of draft day.
But that's what draft day avoided.
Right.
That's what he voted.
They obviously didn't watch draft day.
Yeah. So the but now it got Baker. But listen, I will do this. Thank you.
All right. This is great. Thank you very much, Kevin
Take care.
Costner. All right. Thanks so much to Kevin Costner. Thanks to ZipCrew. Don't forget to go to zipcrew.com/BS. Thanks to the Diamond Casino and Resort, now open in the heart of Los Santos, a one-stop destination for quality entertainment and high-end living in Grand Theft Auto Online. Purchase a penthouse to become a VIP member and gain access to action-packed cooperative missions. Experience luxury at the Diamond Casino and Resort. The latest free update to Grand Theft Auto Online. Access is free with every copy of Grand Theft Auto 5, available now at rockstargames.com. And thanks to WGU, an online university that's changing lives by changing higher education. Their competency-based learning model was designed specifically to fit in the lives of busy adults. And it's about half the cost of other online universities. They offer bachelor's and master's degrees in business, IT, teaching, and nursing. And graduates have gone on to work for leading companies like Microsoft and Amazon. Get your $65 application fee waived at wgu.edu/BS. Don't forget about 2 rewatchables, Top Gun, Reservoir Dogs, both up there. I'm going to be back on this podcast next week. Hopefully more sports stuff will happen. Until then.